Anyway, so this is Vivi Brunieri. She's a former porn actress known as Ronaldinha. Because of her affair with Ronaldo Phenomenal, she dropped what she considered prostitution to be an evangelical missionary in Japan. In 2019, she opened a steakhouse. So you kind of get an idea what she's all about, former porn actress. Here's another famous Maria Chuteira, Andressa Uraki. She converted to the evangelical faith after a near lethal experience in a cosmetic procedure with hydrogel. This is Renata Frison, Mulher Melon, or Melon Woman, as she's known in the media. Once she said she was a retired Maria Chuteira and nowadays only keeps friendships with soccer players. Psychologist L.Y., who has been working in the sports world for over 10 years, says that players who date a lot of partners may have to deal with a little more emotional stress because of the repercussions of relationships that made it to media headlines. This is the aforementioned Dani Spearley, says that the first time she had a relationship with a player was when she was 18 years old. Going back to the psychologist, when my athletes tell me they're dating, I always give them a hint to get to know the girl better. If she really likes them and if she is someone who will support him when the phase of the field is not good, it's just like anybody else. Among the duties of a psychology professional in soccer is to work on the head of a young person who sometimes goes from a minimum wage to thousands of, in this case, reais or euros almost instantly, depending on where they're playing. If they're playing in Brazil, they're earning in reais. If they're playing somewhere in Europe, they're earning in euros. If they're playing in the United States, they're earning in dollars. Most Brazilian soccer players who make it big, make a lot of money, they go over to the leagues in Europe because the Brazilian leagues cannot pay them the type of money that they would be earning over in European soccer fields. I've had cases of players who went from a salary of 800 reais per month to 25,000 reais in less than a month. Understand, 800 reais a month, that's not even one minimum salary, with minimum salary being 1,212 reais per month. 800 reais comes short of the minimum salary. This concept is also valid for the aspiring girlfriends of these athletes, since from one moment to another, they can enjoy a lifestyle that would be much more difficult to achieve through conventional jobs. Now, this is something that I see oftentimes. I can't say for certainty, how many of these soccer players had these girlfriends before increase in their monthly salary. Here's one example of this young kid named João Pedro. All right, he let's see, rags to riches, the meteoric rise of Rio football player João Pedro. A near nobody in his own city, he lands a contract in England for millions of euros. Well, I think England is still on the British pound, so we'll say pound. So he went from being a nobody to a multimillionaire just, by signing a contract over in England. So not surprising, he gets a girlfriend. I don't know if he was with this girl before he got famous or she came along after. There's a running joke in communities in Brazil where they say, wow, where was this girl before you got rich and famous? And would she be with you if you were not rich and famous? I don't know what's going on with this kid these days. This was shortly after he signed a big contract with this team in England. But this is a very common story. Kid from a favela, very poor community, the slums. He draws attention from a Brazilian soccer team, plays a little while there, and all of a sudden he gets a call from somewhere in Europe asking him to come over and join a team over in Europe where he'll earn millions of euros per year. Very common story. So anyway, the term Maria Chuteira, again, a soccer gold digger, carries with it some predetermined judgments, as if a woman is only interested because of the fame and fortune that a successful relationship with a soccer player can provide. Athletes in this sport often come from precarious socioeconomic backgrounds, which belittles these athletes. Quote, like, how could anyone fall in love with a poor guy like that? In addition to turning women into mere adornments for the players. But, think about that phrase for a minute. We have this running idea that these relationships come out of love, or she's the one, or she's my soulmate. But Brazilians have said this for years. Like, these soccer players come from poor backgrounds. then they come into a whole lot of money. And it was just like, that blonde on your arm, what is the chances that she would have got with you before you became the multimillionaire superstar? It's a legitimate question, because oftentimes you'll see that sometimes you see these relationships last for a while, several years, but oftentimes the guys move on. Sometimes they move on and they leave a child behind with that woman. And as you can see, or what I talked about previously, they end up paying, tens of thousands of reais for, if they married the woman, they're paying alimony, they're paying child support. Sometimes if they come up short on their alimony or child support payments, they'll end up in jail. There's several stories like that. So again, how could anyone fall in love with a poor guy like that? But as soon as he gets money, all of the girls all of a sudden want him, right? Despite this, the women exist and can be found in bars and clubs frequented by the players. They strategically map out all the fashionable spots of the athletes and literally go out hunting in search of minutes of fame and money. Next to a famous star, they find the shortest way to sensual photo shoots and the promotion of modeling careers. Now, this is a picture that came out some years ago, probably less than 5 or 6 years ago. This is, formerly one of Brazil's greatest soccer players, Ronaldinho. Again, he was a 2-time FIFA Golden Ball Player of the Year, I think 2004, 2005. And this is just a little party that he was having at his place. The soccer star saw repercussions after releasing a photo during his vacation at Atletico MG with several friends. So Ronaldinho is another one of the big soccer players who they start off in a Brazilian league. They do so well in Brazilian league, they get called by a top team in Europe. They go play some years in Europe, earn a lot of money. And when they're past their prime, they end up coming back to Brazil and playing for a Brazilian team just until they retire. This was the case with Ronaldinho when he played with, he was playing with a team in the state of Minas Gerais. So this was a picture that hit the internet. I mean, okay, you got 5 women here, booty up in the pool. What you think is going on there? And would this be going on if Ronaldinho didn't have millions? I think it's a legitimate question. What do you think? You already know what, you should know what my answer would be. Anyway, this is not a national phenomenon. The Maria Chuteiras break borders. When he was an athlete, the former Brazilian team player Vampeta confessed that he took 6 women to Europe when he played in France. All of them paid for entirely by him. So he says, "I'll be honest, I have taken women to Paris, Milan, and Holland," he said. Of course, they were not moved by love or passion. The objectives were very pragmatic: money, luxury, and fame. Many players enter this game knowing full well what game they are playing. He says again, "It's normal for athletes who play in Europe to take girls from Brazil there. Abnormal is a rape scandal," said Vampeta from Bahia, the northeastern state of Bahia. So you get what he's saying here. He may be over in France playing soccer, but he'll still bring over, X amount of Brazilian women for him to have fun while he's over there, right? Again, very commonplace in the world of soccer. It's not enough to have sporting success. You have to accumulate women as a sign of success, evaluates Gustavo Andrada, a researcher of the Education and Gender Relations Study Group of the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul. He conducts research related to sports. They are used to measure a player's talent. They are like a trophy, he says, in reference to these women. For the women who, in the end up marrying soccer players, called WAGs, which is means wives and girlfriends in English, just an expression for those who date and walk down the aisle with soccer stars. Maria Chuteira is nothing more than a label that debases the image of women and ends up being exploited almost always through a macho point of view. That's always a good question to ask, because I often ask this question. Okay, maybe people will say that the Maria Chuteira stereotype and term actually debases the image of women, but at the same time, these women freely participate in these types of relationships. So I'm not saying people should be demeaned, but I'm saying they freely choose to be in such type of relationships. And a lot of these women have pride in that. Like, I've been with him, I've been with him, I've been with him, I was with him and his boy, So I find it difficult to look and say these women are being debased when they freely participate in it. It's not like somebody picked them off the streets and just, had a gang rape session or something. That's completely different to me. So I'm saying, like in the video that I did before, when we're talking about the images that these funkeras have, these funk singers, the image that the Brazilian prostitute takes all over the world, they freely partake in this exchange of sex with money. So then, they have this certain type of label. I mean, the question would be, whose fault is that really? Is it the man's fault? Is it society's fault? Or is it the woman who chose to partake in that lifestyle? That's my question. Anyway, for Gustavo Andrada, the increase of female participation in soccer can be an antidote. By playing, they stop being characters behind the scenes of soccer and become protagonists in the sport. The 2019 Women's World Cup in France, which was widely covered by broadcast TV channels in June and July of that year, in some ways helped this transition. The greater publicity of the Women's World Cup, it tends to bring some questioning. I don't know if it will be a lot, but it will certainly do something, he projects. So, wanted to get a little bit into the story. This is a story I've been wanting to cover for some years, but there's so many pieces to it that I just never got around to being able to narrow down the story into just one post. This is a story that made international headlines some years ago. I remember when this story happened. It's like, I don't know, you could look at it and say it was kind of like an O.J. Simpson type of situation. So this is it's called the Elisa Samudio Bruno case. This is Bruno, he was a soccer goalie. And this is a woman that he had this affair with, right? So don't know if most people outside of Brazil had heard of this case, but it did make international headlines. When we talk about the Maria Chuteira, it is common to remember the tragic case between the goalie Bruno, an ex-goalie for the famous Rio soccer team Flamengo, and the model Elisa Samudio. Motivated by an unwanted pregnancy, the goalie ordered the kidnapping of her and her son in June of 2010. The investigation concluded that Elisa was killed by strangulation at the player's farm in the city of Ribeirão das Neves, which is located in the state of Minas Gerais. Her body was butchered up and never found by the police. Bruno was sentenced by popular jury to 22 years and 7 months in prison for murder, concealment, kidnapping, and private captivity. In 2017, the goalie got an injunction by habeas corpus. He signed a contract with the Boa Esporte Clube, a soccer team in the city of Varginha, which is also in Minas Gerais state. He even managed to play 5 games with that club. A month later, Bruno had his right to freedom revoked and he returned to jail. In 2019, he was working in a closed regime prison in an association of assistants to convicts in Varginha and would try a progression to a semi-open prison facility, but he was caught with 2 women in a bar during the time he should have been working. As a result, he will only be able to request a progression of his sentence in 2023. Okay, this is Bruno and the woman they say he had killed. This is him obviously being handcuffed, being led away. His full name is Bruno Fernandes das Dores de Souza. Just to explain a little bit about the prison system in Brazil, it's considered progressive with various stages and rules applying to the type of prison stay a prisoner will have. In the closed prison regime, prisoners are confined within the prison all day and all night. In the semi-open regime, they are allowed to work outside in the daytime, but are required to return to the prison every night. So this was a story that stayed in the news in Brazil for, I just remember it seemed like every day I was hearing about this story. Like I said, it reached like O.J. Simpson type proportions some years ago. This was I don't know if this was The Guardian. I can't remember which British site covered this story, but like I said, it made international headlines. So anyway, that's a little bit about this world that they say exists among the Maria Chuteira types, the soccer gold diggers. There's a couple other stories I want to cover about this situation, this I don't know, phenomenon of women, jumping, finding athletes that they're interested in. Yeah, they just happen to be rich, but I'm quite sure that has nothing to do with why they're pursuing these men. Anyway, this is another article that I'm going to say I'm putting it up now because I'm quite sure in the future I will be having to refer to this piece. And I wanted to just leave it for future articles and to give this phenomenon some context for people who don't live in Brazil. And it's not necessarily that you have to live in Brazil to understand that, because as I said, the idea of a Maria Chuteira, a gold digger, a sack chaser, whatever you want to call her, this is something that we see everywhere, particularly in the United States. So that's the story I'm going to leave for now. Hope you guys got something out of this video. If you liked it, drop a couple comments in the comment section. Consider giving the video a thumbs up, give it in a like, subscribe to the channel. It's the only way I can, can help it grow, and click on the notification button so that you'll be one of the first people to get an update, when I put up a new video, which I'm putting up regularly now. So with that said, I'm going to end this video here, and hope you guys check out the next video that I post.